Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Wow. It's a distinct honor today to welcome Dr. Richard Jones. And he will be our today's impact speaker. I'm Sharon Milligan, Vice Dean of Academic Affairs and Student Services here at the Mandel School. And today is a privilege to host a true giant in the field of social work. A double alumnus of Case West Reserve University and a member of the Mandel School Visiting Committee, Dr. Richard Lewis Jones. Dr. Jones holds a Master's of Science in Social Administration, or MSSA, from 1975, and a PhD in Social Welfare from 1980. He's a second-generation graduate of the Mandel School. His mother, Dr. Wilhelmina Jones Johnson Mans, graduated from the Mandel School with her MSSA in 1965. And Dr. Jones followed her and graduated 10 years later with his degree. So you can see that the Mandel School runs really deep in his family. You have an opportunity to review his extensive bio via the link provided in your communications from us. But I'll now share just a few recent background details on Dr. Jones. Dr. Richard Lewis Jones has served in major leadership roles in the nonprofit sector throughout the country. In 2013, he served as a senior vice president of community investment of the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago. He also served as an administrator in employment and family services and the Cuyahoga County Support Enforcement Agency here in Ohio. Prior to that, he served for 13 years as president and CEO of the Metropolitan Family Services in Chicago, delivering more than $290 million in programs and services to over 600,000 people during his tenure. As an NASW social work pioneer, Dr. Jones has spent decades navigating the complexities of our profession. Today, as the president of the board for Farah Insurance Company, he joins us at a critical juncture. We are seeing federal policy shifts and funding cuts that threaten the very stability of the behavioral health and social service system of our communities. Our communities rely upon. In this landscape, social workers are not just responders. They are essential navigators. Dr. Jones is here to discuss how our profession serves as a frontline defense against instability, an advocate against misinformation, and a source of hope during uncertain times. From challenges to the progress of the Social Work Licensure Compact, Dr. Jones will provide a comprehensive look of how we sustain this vital work. I just have one quick housekeeping note. Dr. Jones will begin and he will present. And then you will have an opportunity to write your questions. And those online, you can jot your questions on the Q&A section on the online. And we're looking forward to having an opportunity to interact, hear from Dr. Jones, but also to interact with him through the question and answer period. Now, join me in welcoming back a visionary leader, a dedicated champion for justice, Dr. Richard Lewis Jones.
It's really great to see everyone this afternoon on a beautiful day in Cleveland. So good to see you this better weather. I want to express my appreciation to Dr. Nolan and also to Dean Lawson for his invitation to serve as the third speaker, in the Impact Series. I'm also joined by our distinguished board chair of the committee, of the Business Committee, Susan Lapine, and also a longtime colleague, Sandra Turner, who's a former chair of the Business Committee. So I'm delighted to see this kind of representation from our business committee. I want to begin by recognizing my mom, Dr. Wilhelmina Mans. As indicated, she is an alumnus of the Mandel School, went on to complete her PhD at the University of Chicago, and then joined the faculty of the Howard University School of Social Work for many years. And I want to recognize my mom because I know that my brother, Roderick Jones, is looking at this from his home in Columbus, Ohio. And I know I'm also joined by my younger sister, Shelley Johnson, and also by my sister, Dr. Donna Cole. So thank you for allowing me to just recognize the incredible work that she contributed, not only as a faculty member, but as a writer and also a very, very skilled and competent clinician. So let me begin. The Impact Series to me is very important because I have either authored or co-authored over 25 articles and op-ed pieces over the 2-year period of time. Some of the op-eds that I have written explore the social worker shortage in Alabama, in Louisiana, and of all places in Hawaii as well. Others have discussed the key roles that social workers have assumed in addressing challenges like working with veterans, working with unhoused youth in the state of California, which is a huge, huge problem that California is trying to address even today. I've also discussed initiatives in the state of Wisconsin that bring together social workers working with the police department in terms of allowing social workers to conduct a mental health assessment before any action is taken with respect to that person that the police department has been called in to detain. And I think it's an important initiative because it really is a framework that's being adopted across the country. I've also looked at the issue of mental health, but that's a very, very important issue in our profession today and will continue to be an important issue in the future as well. Dean Lawson asked me to comment about my article that appeared in the Social Work News, which was titled, "How Social Workers Work Tirelessly to Improve the Lives of Millions." So I want to use that article as a basis for my presentation and also use some of the experiences I've had and continue to have as an executive coach with clients in Philadelphia, Cleveland, and also Chicago. And I also might indicate clients are in the for-profit as well as a nonprofit space. I'm also very interested in sharing information with you based on my role as the president of the board of directors of the Preferred Insurance Company. Some of you probably have your professional liability insurance with Preferred. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm very involved with Preferred, have been involved with Preferred for over 20 years now, so a long period of time. And I'm going to use my experiences as serving as an executive director in Boston, in Cleveland, and also in Chicago. What I'm trying to do through this talk is enhance our knowledge about major trends that are affecting the social work profession, because I think it's very important to set the stage. I want to identify emerging initiatives that are offering new opportunities for social workers across the country, which I am very, very excited about. I know that there are any number of prospective students who are watching this video. And I just want to paint a picture of a very bright future that our profession is facing, despite the efforts on the part of the Department of Education to devalue. We are growing, which I will talk about, and there are many new opportunities that are opening in the field as we speak. I also want to increase awareness of risk management issues from social workers based on insurance claims, something that we don't talk about, that we need to discuss. And I want to identify strategies for mitigating risk as well as improving clinical and community-based work. So let's dive into a discussion about what some of the major challenges are that we are facing. In a statement recently made by the National Association of Social Workers, communities are facing growing challenges, including threats to social safety net programs, voting rights restrictions, threats to social safety net programs, and looking at the rising discrimination and the growing mental health crisis that we are experiencing in America today. Mental health is becoming a very important focus for our profession, as it has been for a long period of time. And I was looking at data that has been compiled by the Mental Health America Association about the state of mental health in America from their 2025 report. And the data indicates that New York, Hawaii, and New Jersey, which were scored across 17 majors that are looking at the prevalence of mental health as well as access to mental health, are among the best states where services can be accessed. By the way, the state of Ohio is ranked number 12 in this particular ranking. It's very interesting that there are any number of projections that are out in the community now that where we're citing numbers. This is one number. There are arrays. But my number is not absolute, but it's the number that is really used in this report. So the number that the Mental Health America Association group cites is that 24% of adults in the US are experiencing some mental illness. And we're talking about in the top two, anxiety as well as depression. There is estimated equivalent to over 60 million people who are struggling with mental health issues today. And increasingly, we are looking at suicide as another area of focus. And we are projecting there are as many as 14 million people who have thought about committing suicide in our country today. And probably the number is growing, because oftentimes these numbers are based on self-reports and also based on reports from organizations and institutions. But we can imagine how many people are not sharing when they're going through the kinds of crisis they are experiencing. So when I look at those numbers, I always want to add to them because I think they're much larger than what we are reading about in a lot of these reports. It is also indicated that youth are increasingly presenting issues in this area. Also, that one report indicates for youth between the ages of 12 and 17, almost 12% of youth are experiencing some sort of major depression episode, meaning that they are severely impacted with their functioning at home or in school or even at work. So on a related note, I also want to share with you some information about loneliness and isolation. This is becoming a very, very important area that is increasingly being recognized in our community. And I was interested that this month alone, I reviewed 3 articles about loneliness in the Cleveland area. So for example, as well as nationally, in the current issue of the National Association of Social Work Advocates, spring edition, the cover page of that journal is titled Loneliness and Isolation. And there's a very, very interesting article that accompanies that publication. There was also an op-ed piece that was written in the Plain Dealer on this past Sunday by Brother Matt Wooters, who is a faculty member of John Carroll University. And he is raising concern about the growing number of young men on college campuses who are struggling with loneliness. He makes this quote that the result is that a generation that looks connected on the outside, but really feels profoundly alone on the inside, which I think is a very descriptive way of really capturing some of the struggles that young men, young women are really facing on college campuses. Now, Brother Wooters has created a group called Brothers Keeper as a program initiative on the campus of John Carroll to really help to address this particular issue. And then I might also indicate that right here at home, Grace Western Reserve University, in their weekly publication that comes out from President Kaler, the most recent issue talks about loneliness. In fact, there is a article that's called Northeast Ohio Aging Population is Getting Lonelier. It's a very interesting article. But my point is that this is the area that we are increasingly seeing more representation and more awareness created around. Another area that I wanted to just comment on briefly is the area of aging. So we're seeing growth among those of us who are 60 years of age and older. And it's interesting that it's projected that by 2030, 1 in 5 Americans will be 65 years old and older, while the number of people 85 years and older is expected to double by 2035, from 6.5 million to 11.8 million. And it's also noteworthy that the population of the United States will cross the 400 million threshold by 2058. And the projections indicate that we project that older adults will outnumber children for the first time, while those of us who are considered minority now will represent the majority of the population by 2060, which I would argue is really fueling some of the restrictive voting policies that are being ushered in by the U.S. Congress today. So these are important areas that I really want to highlight. I could have gone and talk about the opioid crisis and other crises, but I just want to set the stage for those. I want to make an observation also about AI, artificial intelligence. In fact, AI, I remember when it was first launched, and we really talked about AI from the standpoint that we recognized it was narrowly defined. Because when you look at the platforms and we look at the formulae that were used to build platforms, they were based on a very limited segment of the population and not inclusive of the universe that is more representative of as to who we really are. Now, AI is with us and will always be with us. And I'm really pleased to see that AI is being embraced by the field. The School of Social Work uses AI at the University of Kentucky to actually create simulated virtual patients that are struggling with suicide. And I want to put a pin in suicide because I'm going to talk about that later in my discussion on the kinds of claims activity that we as preferred insurance company are really struggling with. But I'm really happy that they are really kind of moving in that direction and using that as a tool. Desmond Patton, who is a social worker and was on the faculty at Columbia University and is now at the University of Pennsylvania, is really coming up with some interesting models based on AI for really assessing risk factors in young people who are unfortunately turning to violence and other activities that result in juvenile detention or involvement in other criminal activity. And I've been following his work, very interested in because of the way he's really integrating that platform in the assessment tools that he is building. There's another project that I want to make you aware of that is creating anxiety within me. This is the Dartmouth College project called the Dartmouth Fairbot Initiative. And in this initiative, they have argued and are demonstrating that AI-powered chatbots can be as effective as human therapists for managing depression, anxiety, and substance use. So this is a project that I don't want to be under the rug, but it's one that I think that we should track and follow very, very carefully. Data literacy and digital fluency with a variety of programs are increasingly becoming an integral part of good clinical practice. And it was interesting, I was listening to a presentation by President Taylor on Idea Street. He was talking about the future of Case Western Reserve University. And for prospective students who are looking and watching this video, I wanted to mention we're in good shape. There's a bright future. And I'm really excited where both the Mandel School is heading and also the Case Western Reserve University is heading. But he made a comment that really stuck with me. He reported a conversation that he had with the president of Microsoft, who made the comment that it would be unethical to hire a new employee who is not firmly grounded in AI. That's a very powerful statement. And of all the comments he made during this presentation, that is definitely one that stuck with me. Now, social workers are involved in all of these areas. And one of the areas that we're all concerned about are the funding cuts and major changes in federal and state policies, which will affect countless low-income families, seniors, communities who rely on Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs. To access medical and mental health services, we know that we're facing incredible challenges. In fact, the projection is that there will be over $880 billion worth of reductions in a lot of these public and federally funded programs over the course of the next 10 years. And I just want to highlight, we all have been reading that as a country, we're spending $1 billion a day on the war. And it was interesting because in a sermon that was given by my pastor this past Sunday, he translated this based on an article that was in the New York Times. So $21 billion could pay for 1 year of health for millions of people. $21 billion could provide food assistance for 5.5 million people. $21 billion could actually provide raises regarding the salaries of over 100,000 teachers today. So it's interesting the choices that we are making and the options that we have in front of us as we are making those choices. New proposed rules for the Affordable Care Act that are being ushered in from the current administration could permit health insurance plans with a $31,000 family deductible and a $15,000 individual deductible. more than 1 million people had already dropped out of or declined healthcare because of anticipating the end of subsidies that are currently available. And I was very intrigued by a comment that was made by my colleague, John Corlett, who made the comment that high deductibles are not just cost sharing, but it's risk shifting that looks like a pathway to medical bankruptcy. So that's the stage I want to set. Now, it's important that we recognize that given that kind of staging that we are facing, given the activities of the U.S. Department of Education, let me just begin with the statement by Maya Angelou, and still I rise. The data about the numbers of social workers providing services in the United States are very interesting. While we are seeing efforts to devalue the social work profession, the social work profession is growing at a rate of between 6 and 7% annually. And I might add that the growth that's occurring in our field is at a faster rate in comparison to other professions and other disciplines in our overall economy, which I find very, very exciting and also very encouraging. In my role as the president of the board of directors of the preferred insurance company, we track numbers very carefully because we want to determine how many social workers are actually enrolled in our general liability program, our professional liability program, and also in our cyber liability program. And we currently are serving over 80,000 social workers and human service professionals across the country today. So it's very interesting that we are serving about 10% of that base. We're estimating that there are as many as close to 800,000 social workers for providing services today. Now, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we need almost 80,000 social workers annually to fill jobs that are created by social workers who are retiring or social workers who might be moving into other fields. And I also checked some of the numbers with the Council on Social Work Education, which I found very interesting, because I wanted to see how many students are in the pipeline as we're looking at this gap that we are really facing, and also as we know that we are growing. And according to the Council on Social Work Education, there are now over 98,000 students that are enrolled in DSW programs and also in MSW programs. And it's estimated that there are over 900 programs that are providing services to students today, which I think is remarkable, although I know that Case Western Reserve University's Mandel School is among the top in that ranking. Now, I want to just talk about the fact that even though there are challenges that we're facing, and even though it might take a little longer period of time to find employment, I am really struck by how many social workers are finding work despite the economy, despite the efforts to devalue our profession. I had the honor of serving as a mentor to 3 students over the past 6 years. Donovan Young, who is a recipient of the Mandel School's 2025 Early Career Success Award, is now a program officer at the George Gump Foundation. Dr. Sirifil Ijuju obtained his master's here at the Mandel School and went on, returned to his home in Columbus, Ohio, and completed his PhD. And Dr. Ijuju is now the Chief Clinical Officer at the Montrose Behavioral Health Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. And then on your screen, you see Moses Gone. Moses and I worked together over the 2 years that he was a part of the master's degree program. And Moses was passionate about working with citizens and finding ways of empowering communities so that citizens are really engaged in every facet of decision-making affecting the community. And today, I'm happy to share, not only is Moses a proud new dad, but Moses lives here in Cleveland and he works remotely, which I think is another trend that we are seeing in our field that needs to be recognized. Moses is currently a program manager for Citizens University that's responsible for developing frameworks for working with communities across the country, engaging community residents in the very thing that he's passionate about, community engagement, involvement in decision making, and staying with that project or the process. So I'm very, very proud of how he has found not only an area that he's passionate about, but an incredible job. And then I looked at the Mandel employment opportunities that we advertised by the school, and I was really amazed by the range in comparison to what was available when I graduated in 1975. In 1975, you're pretty much confined to traditional setting, organizations, nonprofit, human service organizations, and then people were also involved in academia and also in private practice. Now, we see the field widening in a very significant way. So there are opportunities in the field of serving youth. There are opportunities in the field of healthcare. There are opportunities in terms of academia. There are opportunities with the Cleveland Neighborhood Progress Association, also with the Cleveland Furniture Bank, which I found very interesting, and also with the National Indian Child Welfare Association, which I think is doing some incredible work. How many more minutes? Awesome. Okay. I want to just mention that I also am looking at media platforms like you are. And there's one I follow, a group of social workers on Reddit. Some have reported they're consultants writing policies. Some are involved in library social work. And some are talking about jobs at the Ford Motor Company, as well as in law firms. So my point is that the skills that we acquire here at the Mandel School are not only applicable to our work in social work, but there's a transferability. It's an application that we can make in other fields, which really widen our horizons in a very major way. There are a number of new opportunities that are emerging, one of which is called the Interstate Licensure Compact for Social Work. The compact is a formal agreement among states to recognize each other's social work license. This agreement simplifies the licensing process. To be eligible to participate in the compact, the social worker must hold an active, unencumbered license in a member state. Over 30 states have signed up for the Interstate Licensure Compact, which is exciting. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I just want to offer a caution because we have some social workers who are practicing across state lines because they think that the licensing compact is active. It's not active yet. We hope it'll be active by the end of this year. The reason I like the compact is because it means that social workers can practice across state lines. It means that we can work with families who are in the military. It means that if you have a client in your private practice and they're on vacation or out of state, then you'll be able to maintain continuity of care. It also means that we'll be able to reach residents who are in underserved communities, including rural areas in the state of Ohio and also in other states as well. So this to me is an important development. Another area that I'm excited about is travel social work. This is a field that is new and is beginning to emerge and really create some exciting opportunities. This is a field I was not aware of. I've been reading about it more and more. The field provides significant salaries along with significant stipends. I know someone who is a traveling person right now. I'm amazed at the salary. Salaries in the $3,000 level per week. And what I'm also amazed about is the stipend is non-taxable. So it's interesting that you combine the stipend and the salary. It's an interesting kind of financial arrangement, which is allowing this person to help pay off his student loans. So he's using it in a very, very significant way. The traveling social worker is used to deal with additional needs that cannot be fulfilled by hospitals, healthcare organizations. So this is very important. I'm kind of rushing through now because I want to get to a couple of other points. I want to talk about burnout very quickly because it's important in our field. It's important to me that we are intentional about creating activities and approaches to dealing with the issue of burnout. We deal with some very, very stressful situations, and we really have to spend more time trying to preserve ourselves and really staying as active as we possibly can. Before I came here this morning, I went to my workout class at 6 a.m. And I'm glad to do that. There's a counselor who runs an intentional steps counseling program in North Carolina. And her program is based on 4 pillars called radical preservation. That includes protecting peace, preserving energy, practicing intentional rest, and pursuing purpose with boundaries. I love this comment she makes. Well, if we are not intentional, burnout can quietly erode our clinical judgment, boundaries, and our compassion. So that to me is important. Finally, I want to talk about my experience with liability claims. As I indicated, we provide services at preferred insurance to over 80,000 social workers. And those 80,000 social workers are doing exceptional work. But from time to time, when a claim comes through the insurance company, we take a very, very careful look at those claims because we're trying to do our best to defend the social worker who is a part of our program. I decided I wanted to look at some of the activities where we are seeing many, many requests. We operate a helpline, we conduct webinars, and when I looked at the most significant questions that are coming through on our helpline, they tend to cluster in the area of subpoenas. Many social workers are really raising questions about what should I do? The important thing is you have to respond because it's a legal document. But what I have taken away from our experience, we have to spend more time talking about how we process subpoenas and other legal documents that really hit our practice. Interestingly enough, there are also questions about how you work with the families of deceased clients. We are governed by HIPAA rules. We are governed by the state statutes. So it's very important that you pay attention to those because we cannot share information that becomes what we call discoverable, particularly if a claim becomes a lawsuit. And then there are questions about release of information and also questions about board complaints that are coming from state licensure boards across the country. The other comment I want to make is that some of our claims that have become lawsuits are clustering in the areas of boundaries and sexual activity. I was kind of surprised about that, to be honest with you. And some of my colleagues said, "You are really naive." But it's interesting that the takeaway for me is that we have to have more discussion about boundaries and how important it is to respect boundaries, in our field. Another area that we're very concerned about relates to documentation. The case record, that file becomes the primary document for you if you happen to be involved in a legal dispute. So documentation becomes very important. Sometimes in our activity, when we're trying to defend a social worker, the record is unclear, it's not legible, some of the assessment is not clear. So every time I have an opportunity to talk to my colleagues, I try to reinforce the importance of really ensuring that document is really in good shape. So that we have one other comment I want to make before we stop. That is in the area of suicide. We see a number of claims that are related to suicides. And that is a big area in our claims history that relates to, that sometimes falls in the category of lawsuit. And I want to encourage all of us, social workers who are in the field, social workers who are students and coming into the field, to make sure that along with your AI training, you really stay abreast of how you can work with a client who is expressing any notions about suicide, where they should refer to, operating in a very timely manner, consulting with a coach, consulting with a clinical social worker who really understands this area. This is an important area for us. So in closing, like got the assignment from the dean, it's exciting to me to see the new opportunities that are open. It's exciting to me to see the growth. It's exciting to me to see the wide array of opportunities that are in our field, which speaks to a bright future for social work. I'm also excited about the number of students who are enrolled in DSW programs and also in MSW programs. And I just want to end with this note, and that is that social workers are an important and integral part of our society. We as a society should do all we possibly can to champion social workers and recognize that we are playing an integral role in removing unnecessary barriers that help us by empowering communities to create stronger individuals and ultimately a more resilient nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I'd like to thank Dr. Milligan for that wonderful introduction to Dr. Jones. We just had a site visit from the Magna Foundation in Parkwood, where we showcased some of our leadership fellows as well as the recipients of the Mandel Dean Scholarship. Some of them in the room here today. And of course, they're always interested in leadership, and Dr. Jones embodies what legacy and impactful leadership looks like through a very distinguished career. Dr. Jones will be receiving a Distinguished Alumni Award at our diploma ceremony in May 15th. So we want to invite all of you to come out, please. So Dr. Jones, thank you so much again. So we have some questions. Yes, please. So we'll take questions from the audience, but let's get in a couple of questions from those online first. Someone says, Dr. Jones, as you indicated, there is an increasing need for social workers in the field of aging. However, few seem to be select this concentration. How do you suggest increasing interest and involvement in this population, particularly given the demographics that you mentioned?
I think that aging is probably one of the most exciting fields that is emerging in our profession. And I would encourage new students who come to the program to really take a look at aging, because I think there are a number of opportunities that are out there. I think it's important to talk to faculty here at the Mandel School for one, who have specialization in that particular area. I think it's important to talk to members of the business committee who have affiliations with aging organizations in Greater Cleveland. And I think it's very important to look at opportunities that are outside of the state. I worked in Boston and Chicago, and to me, that was really exciting. But those are some ways I would really get connected. But I think it's a burgeoning field, and the growth is going to be incredible in that area. So I would really, if I was coming to the field, that's one area I would really explore as a focus.
I have questions in the audience, please lift your hand up and Neil will get to you. Yes, some questions in the back?
One of the things that you spoke about was the kind of growing the role of AI, and even you mentioned that Dartmouth, Beer Bot Initiative. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on the role of social workers as AI becomes more advanced and kind of involved in the field.
Well, for example, I admire the fact that the law school is now requiring a certificate AI for first-year students. So that's one possibility, it's one option. But I think it's important that you find an AI program where you are exposed to more than just ChatGPT, looking at that. Because there are other aspects of AI that we can really embrace as a field. And I would have to turn to the faculty here. I know there are faculty here that have an interest in AI. So I would encourage you to become a part of an affinity group. And I would encourage the school to develop an affinity group around AI. I think it's important that we recognize the criticisms that have been mounted against AI. But as I indicated before, AI is here to stay. And we should embrace it, we should shape it, and we should use it to our advantage in the field. So that's all.
Other questions from the audience? Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I think I'm appreciating the broad span of opportunities that you mentioned. So one thing that concerns me is, I think something you referenced about the change in funding education for social work. And as far as I know, that hasn't been changed. And so I'm wondering if you're aware of any projections in terms of how that's going to affect students coming into the field, and are there any options should this not be shifted in terms of how do we meet that demand that you so eloquently spoke about?
I think that basically there's going to be more pressure on the private sector with respect to, for example, I was thinking about the Mandel School, and I was thinking, okay, the Mandel School, like other schools, is facing reductions because of federal funding and also state funding. So we have to look at creative ways of kind of surviving, through this process. I remember I was working with Mayor Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, and I said to him, I really need more city funding for my program. And his response was, Dr. Jones, there are opportunities in crisis. And I said to him, well, you're creating a crisis for me, and my opportunities, I would like to look at funding from you. But one way to really approach it is I would like to see endowments grow at private institutions, like Case Western Reserve. And this is a project I think that the business committee, I would encourage us to look at. Because I think that's the future. I think there's going to be such pressure on the private sector. That's one. Two, I admire what this Mandel School is doing around paid field internships. That is so important. That's an important development. Congratulations for moving in that direction. And for those of you who are online, that's another reason you should come to the Mandel School. Because some schools don't offer that, so that's important. But I think we have to really, on the private side, where I think the other thing we have to do, which we don't do enough of, is work with an organization like the National Advertising Council of America to create more awareness of the importance of our work. We are really excellent at talking amongst ourselves. But in terms of navigating with the external communities, I can comment about that because I'm an executive coach. And I work with executives, as I indicated, in Chicago and here, and I am very aware of the absence of awareness about the vitality of our field. And so one approach to me is really working with a national organization like the Advertising Council of America and really creating more awareness about who we are and how our work is making a vast difference in the lives of individuals, families, and also communities. So those are 2 words.
Okay, there's a comment here from Dr. Wilma Peebles online. As you know, she's a distinguished alumna of the Mandel School and also a former dean at Boston College. She said, Dr. Lewis, your presentation today is timely and well done. I applaud you. So we're going to wrap now. We know some folks have to transition to other programs and classes. But I want to thank again Dr. Lewis Jones for his wonderful presentation. Please join me. Impact Talk as we celebrate Social Work Month. But we know that every day is Social Work Day because we are standing in the gap for so many communities that have been left behind. I want to invite you on March 31st to join our live webinar called Proud to be Mandel. This is an all online webinar event where we showcase the impact, strategic direction of the Mandel School across our students, research centers, and how we are changing the game and improving lives for folks in Ohio and beyond. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Oh, CEUs, if you need CEUs, please see me that if I'm with you, sign up for CEUs, and she'll get you registered. This is